Welcome back to Lit versus Genre, everybody. This is Steve.
And this is Jeff.
And all right, so we're back with Rands.
We are indeed. You thought it was going to be boring. Yeah.
So, okay, yeah, I would say this is not as boring as the previous Rands chapters.
Boom.
Jeff,
Talk to me.
what is this book about? What is happening? These chapters, I gotta say,
Uh,
like, yeah, it was more engaged for sure, but I'm like, what is the point of all these people? Like, who are they? What we literally just like dropped in on like all these new characters and then we just
yep.
left them. And we'll talk about it. We'll talk. I got a couple things I want to talk about storytelling wise
Fair
about
enough. Fair
this.
enough. I mean, we should probably start with weaving the web because obviously you're referring to chapter 40
Yeah,
more so.
I mean, chapter
So
40 is the chapter that I want to talk
we'll
about.
ease in by talking about weaving the web.
So,
So,
this chapter, what did I have? So, he wants to go and see the dragon.
right.
And I guess one thing that confused me that I eventually caught on to is he has this anxiety because I guess when he bought his little thing to cover up his sword, he picked the
Mhm.
red one,
Right.
and
Yeah.
like all these other people are wearing the white ones.
Right.
White is against the queen,
Right.
and they don't like the queen. There's
Right.
way more of them for some reason. Like the town is like overrun with people in the white things who hate the
Yeah.
queen. He's got a red one, which I felt was like, this was a random 50-50 choice that he made, right? He
Well, he bought
happened to
it.
make the better choice.
Well, it was because it was cheaper.
Ah, okay.
He bought the red because it was cheaper, which, if white's in the majority, would make sense.
Supply and demand. All right. That's a
Exactly right.
nice
Exactly
little
right.
economics lesson there. Okay.
I know,
So
right?
so he did that, and but I was like confused, I guess, because let's see if I have this.
Maybe you didn't remember that he had it, or
Yeah, no, I guess I didn't understand. So everybody's here to see the dragon.
right?
Everybody hates the dragon.
Yep.
But for some reason, they really want to differentiate themselves between pro queen and anti queen.
So this has been going on it didn't just start today. Like it
Right.
was going on when Rand got there and everything.
So everybody, like in this town, wherever they go, whatever they do, they're gonna wear this thing. It'd be it'd be like we all go out and wear
Right.
Democrat, Republican, headbands or
Yeah.
something. Like wherever we
100%.
go.
That is precisely what's happening. It's
All
like
right.
a time of unrest.
All right, all right. Okay, that's okay. I accept that. Um, yeah, because I was like, what are they singing? But then, like, the lion is is good. Like, that's the whole symbol of the whole kingdom, right? Is this lion?
Yeah, the Lion of Andor.
Okay, but they don't like the queen, but they like the lion. I guess I kind of get
Well,
this.
so the idea is supposed to be that today it's not about that. That like there's been this sort of political upheaval brewing with more and more people leaning toward this, non-queen side. But today the dragon is coming through town, so everyone's there to see the dragon, and they're celebrating Andor being part of who captured him, like the
Okay.
troops from Andor. So that's why people are still singing Andor songs because they're proud of their city. And then like after today, it would go back to the political problems, basically.
All right, gotcha. Now, are there
I,
no like people who are pro dragon?
I think, um, yeah, so that's tricky. I mean, I was going to say dark friends, but not really because they're more
Yeah,
dark one. You know what I mean?
yeah.
The problem is the dragon heralds the end of like the age. And so I don't think anyone wants their time to be the
Oh, but
time.
there are crazy people who are
I mean,
who
there are.
are down to bring the end of the edge. And did he not have like an army or something, or to
He
like,
did. So yeah, I mean,
yeah,
there are people that rally to there are people that rally to the dragon for sure.
right.
So yeah, I mean, he could be. They even think is Rand a supporter of Logain. So like
Mm-hmm.
Logain does have supporters. Because the queen asks that in the next chapter about a potential reason why Rand was there.
Okay.
Um,
So I
so yeah,
guess if any of these people showed up, though, there'd be a riot or something, and so they didn't show up.
yeah. Well, I mean, they lost. Their leader was captured by himself. So yeah, I don't think there's. I mean, maybe there's enough of them to try to break him free or something. But yeah, we're not really seeing his followers or dragon followers right now.
Yeah. For some reason,
Yeah.
I just thought there would be some people, that would be pro him. And I mean, I guess this is a strength of the story, but again, there's so much differentiation and factions that for a moment I was like, wait, are the people who are against the queen therefore pro the false dragon? But no,
Right.
that was not the case. But I was thinking like, well, maybe that could be a possibility if you're anti the queen and the queen captured a dragon,
Mhm.
maybe you're pro the dragon, but then everybody, again, this thing where everybody just wants to see him but is terrified of him when they see him, or
Right.
they look at him
Exactly.
with fear, and I'm like, all right.
Totally. Well, and then you've even got the white cloaks in there, and about how those with white armbands probably are more pro white cloak than others because white armbands are blaming Aes Sedai for everything, and white cloaks hate Aes Sedai. But then
Mm-hmm.
you still get some guys in white just knocking down a white cloak person, right?
Right. That was
So,
super confusing as well.
yeah. So I mean, I hear that. I think it's also cool though to show that like, yeah, you can have beliefs that sort of line up in maybe one way, but that doesn't mean you're instantly on the same side.
Right. Why?
Yeah, no,
Why?
definitely.
And this is probably just my bad reading as well.
Mhm.
When did we run into this beggar who's really smelly that he had to run away from?
Well, it is. I find it interesting that it's not revealed here, right? Um, because it is feasible to know who that is, but it is interesting that it keeps it as a mystery. Do you want me to tell you?
Whoa. So, but I even feel like the way it's written, it's alluding to you should know this.
Sort of,
The
yeah.
way he goes, the beggar, as
Well,
opposed to a beggar.
well,
That's an odd article where I was like, wait, have I met this guy before? I don't know.
well,
Like, I'm thinking it's what's his face from the other town,
mhm, right,
the guy who came to town with the giant wheels. That dude.
right. Pat and Finn,
Pat and Fane, right.
right.
But like the way this was written, it was like I thought Rand recognized him.
Uh, yeah. So yeah, well, Rand is calling him the beggar because that's what Master Gil called him. Um,
Uh
but here, so we're seeing Rand
so we
recognize
did
him.
see the beggar back in a previous chapter, and Master
Mhm.
Gil mentioned him.
No, 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 no. Master
Oh.
Gil just said he's heard stories about somebody asking about Rand and his crew. The
Ah,
guy who's asking
ah,
about him is a beggar. So then when Rand sees him, he's like, oh, the beggar that Master Gil was talking about. But
gotcha.
Rand doesn't recognize him beyond that. So he is recognizing him, but not fully recognizing him.
Yeah, what I forgot was just Master Gil talked about
Yeah.
that or whatever. Okay, okay, that's what I was missing because I was like, when
But it
did
is an
this?
interesting point, right? Though it's like it's a partial recognition. So
Right.
yeah.
Okay, so all that was cool. It was cool seeing
Mhm.
this thing come in, panting
Mhm.
as much with desire as effort. I don't know about that. I thought I had something else highlighted here that I thought was kind of funny. Just his description about how, yeah, he hoped he would never have another. He hoped he would never have another to see a false dragon.
Yeah, but he's
It's like,
never
what do
had
you
it.
mean? Like, if
I've never
you're hoping you don't have to see him, and you went through all this trouble to see him. It just seems contradictory to me. Like,
Well,
I
it's like
don't
a
know.
once in a lifetime kind of thing. Like,
Right.
um, yeah, I'm just thinking of
I
that phrase
can't
in
think
my
of
head.
anything else in my life that I would be like, man, I really, really, really want to see this just once and never again.
No, but that's totally it. It's like, this could have destroyed the world. It is crazy. I want to see it. But yeah, let's never destroy the world again, right? Like, let's
Well,
just
no,
this
no,
one
yeah.
time.
All right, all right. But what was the other description I thought was really funny about how he was like so undefeated and he's like
Yeah,
such a freaking hunk. Where? Wait, where
so
is it?
baller. So baller. He was defeated, wasn't he?
I mean, I
Yeah.
do like that image of like the four Aes Sedai on every corner just staring at him to make sure that he's like kept in
Right.
place, and that's kind of like the thing that is keeping his power in check or whatever. I like that, but I
Right.
just thought the description, which for some reason I did not highlight, just about how like what a
Yeah, it's
freaking
right around
hunk
there.
he was.
He's totally, totally.
It was pretty
Sounds like a
funny.
king. Like a king.
Every inch of him was a
Yep.
king. I
Yep.
was like, really? Okay.
Boom. This is a man who people will follow. Um, I was gonna say what I think is cool about this is since Moraine and Lan have been like such a big deal, right? Like an Aes Sedai, like one of them, one warder, right? To then see like four Aes Sedai and like all these warders, it's like, whoa, it's like a bunch of lands, you know? So I do feel like that's a cool setup of these people you've met that are like part of this really elite echelon. And then you're
Mhm.
seeing a bunch of them protecting one person. I feel like that amps it as well.
Yeah, yeah, no. I like that. It was a cool image. I just thought like
Mhm.
Rand
Yeah.
was being a little swooning over this guy right here.
I love it. I love it all.
All right. So then
Well, real quick before we transition, I do feel like we should talk about the show just super fast.
oh, okay, yeah.
Which is, so I've heard, and I don't know if it's true or not, I need to do more research, that like they're not even going to get to Camelin in the book. We've talked about this. I mean, like they're not going to get to Camelin in the show, which to me is like crazy. But it seems like how could that be true considering there is the brief glimpse of Logain in the trailer?
Jeff, I don't think you can
So
believe everything in the comments, my friend. I don't think you can believe everything.
what? No, people will not. But no, so I'm just curious. It's more just a curiosity. Where will episode one, like not episode, but the first
Season one.
season, where will it end? Right.
Yeah.
And it does seem like we got to get at least this far to get Logan. So I'm curious how they'll play the
Oh,
Logan
we're
part.
definitely getting this far. Look, so when we get to this next chapter,
Too hype.
well,
It's
first
too
of
hype.
all, as soon as this happened, I'm like, oh God, another love interest. Here we go. Will you just
Get,
settle on one, Rand? Will you just
get
settle
the
on
chips
one?
ready.
Yeah.
Get the chips.
I just want him to pick one at this point, is all I want. But when we got to this point, I was like, okay, now I'm feeling this is a TV show.
Yeah.
Because now we're just throwing in more people, more plot lines,
Hmm.
more, and like it feels now at this point I'm like this feels very episodic now.
Right.
Like in a way that I'm not super pleased with, but in a way that I feel like is very television. Like
Good translate. Yeah.
yeah, like at this point I'm like this novel, and I almost was like I wonder if I would like it better as a serialized
Hmm.
medium as opposed to a novel, because in terms of like rising action, climax,
Right.
building to something,
Nope.
paying off, it's just not happening. We're like on a pretty flat level this whole novel of
Yep.
just this kind of action going and this journey going, and now like you can't tell me things have been building up to this chapter. This chapter was just like, here's a whole bunch of new characters. Let's kind of have a chitter chat about it.
Right.
Like the one payoff again is the thing that we know that he's Aiel,
Right.
whatever, that I don't really
Sure.
care about. So like I'm like this is, and like you said, like he did you say he did serialize things or he just did individual like Conan the Barbarian novels?
Oh, before this came out?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he had done Conan and he had done, I want to say some historical fiction.
Uh,
Before this. So he had released some novels that were more, I think, traditional in style. I have not read them, so I can't speak to like whether or not they followed a more traditional pattern
Right.
of writing, right? But yes, no, I think if I may, I think what you might be feeling, and obviously you described a lot of it, is that you're having trouble seeing like how this book is going to like wrap things up or
Yeah,
like
where is this
conclude in a
going?
satisfying manner,
Yeah.
right? Like how could after we spent this long, how could they possibly like end this? Like, we just met this new crew. Are they gonna be part of the end? Like, so I think these feelings you have are very justified and understandable.
Yeah, like nothing seems to be building, and like um, what I'm being told the whole book is that the main threat, the main thing that we're fighting is against the Dark One. And now,
Sure.
like here in the last, oh, let's switch it to percentages. What are we at in
Do
percentages?
it.
Oh, it's not letting. Oh, it used to show percentages. It's not showing that anymore. But anyway,
Hmm.
we're in like the last quarter, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
and now we throw in Logain. Logain is neither Dark One nor it's just like another element
Right.
that has suddenly arose. The Queen, the whole Queen thing is now like this other element that seems completely separated from that. Like doesn't have
Right.
anything to do with the Dark One.
Yep.
And like so nothing that has come before this has built up to this. This doesn't
Right.
seem to be the payoff to anything. And yeah, I'm really like going like, where is this going? Like,
Mhm.
I'm flabbergasted.
I love it. I think this is my favorite recording set. Don't get me wrong, we had some. There's been some ones early on, like Narg and everything, or the prologue was pretty epic.
Yeah, the
But
prologue was epic.
yes, these are the moments I've been waiting for. Like, what is this book? Like, what is this? How is this working?
Okay, so let me bring this conversation to something else that it struck me as I
Go
was
for
reading
it.
this. So,
Do
have
it.
you ever heard of this like writing advice
Mhm.
from and this is the part that makes it funny from the South Park guys.
Okay. Okay.
So they have this theory, and this is like I've read quite a lot about this, and actually, like I don't dislike it. Their
Mhm.
kind of thesis is that a lot of stories go wrong because the way the narrative progression goes is that you just say, and then this happens, and then this happens, and then this
Right.
happens. And the problem with that, the reason why it's flat and kind of boring, is because there's no cause and effect in
Mhm.
between the things that are happening. So, like they say, look back at your story. If you look at your story and in between every story beat, you just would say, and then that's gonna be boring to your
Mhm.
audience. And what you want to be saying in between is but and therefore. So if
Mhm.
in between every story beat you would say but and then something happens therefore and you get that cause
Right.
and effect that makes your story more interesting as their thesis. And like I tried to think about why, and I think it has a lot to do with really like consequence. So like
Mhm. Mhm.
my whole bag is about decisions, having decision points,
Sure.
having there be consequences to that. And there seems to be overlap between what they're saying and my kind of thesis that you make a
Right.
decision, you do something that has then a consequence that then you have to deal with, and there's this
Mhm.
connection of cause and effect between
Right.
what's happening. And this feels like a very big and then, like this chapter where
And
like
then he fell off a wall.
he literally falls off a wall into the queen's house. First of all, I just laughed. I was like, "What for real?" He fell off the wall into the queen's yard, like completely randomly, and I was like,
Yep.
"Okay, well, it's the pattern,
It
land."
is.
So
It's Javier, right? So,
but I mean, that's not even the coincidence of that. I don't have a big problem with, but it does feel like just another thing happening, right? Like there was nothing in what the character did or the character's agency that caused this. This is
Right.
just like, let's throw in some new stuff. And
Yeah, no, this is just him going about his days and experiencing things, for
mm,
sure. Yeah.
yeah, so I mean, what do you feel about this? I mean, the South Park
Yeah, no.
guys theory. Does this ring true to you at all? Does it seem like BS to you? And then,
I think it's a good soundbite for sure.
mm,
Like, I mean, I feel like and I don't mean that as just like throwing shade. I mean that it's got a deeper quality to it. You can analyze and see truth in it.
mm,
But I'm wary of anything that's like, and they're probably not saying like this is what it needs to be all the time.
right.
They're probably just saying like this is what can make it more interesting, or if people are getting bored with your story, go back and take a look at this, like you
Mm,
pointed out. So no, I think it is good advice. I mean, I do think people, you know, want to see things happen. I will say though that like, people like all sorts of things, right?
yeah.
And I think slice of life is sort of what we're getting here. Like this, what this big story does is it does have some big, huge events like, running from armies of Trollocs and stuff like that. But then it's got a lot of slice of life in between. Just
Mm,
like what is the day to day of getting from point A to point B. And yeah, that's definitely not for everybody, 100%. But then there's a lot of us out there that love it because then you're getting to live more in the world, see what else is on people's minds, see what else people are interested in, see things they care about. Like for me, like the scene with Master Gill, like just the fact that he's like strange shapes. Huh. For me, it's like that it just does so much for me as a reader that I feel like would be lost in a narrative that's trying to move too quickly because it just speaks to his upbringing, where he's from, his belief system, what he thinks, is possible, all in a quick nutshell. Well, Rand knows more because he's been traveling to get to that point in his experiences. And obviously, I'm not saying a moment like that can't happen in a more condensed narrative. Of course, someone's very skilled, it could. But I think that I think I'd rather have an author spend longer in a world that I really love to capture those nuances as opposed to speeding it up and maybe missing them. Obviously, if it's not a world I care about, then it's not going to matter, what it is, which I think is the other side of the coin. You could write the tightest narrative ever, but if I don't care about what your story is about, I'm not going to be interested in it. And I think that's a point of divergence, of course, between the two of us as well.
see, yeah, I think I disagree with you there. Like, I think like if it's a well-made story, the definition of well-made is interesting. Like, you can't have a when you say tight, I'm not sure what you mean by tight exactly.
Oh, this is. We were kind of talking last time about the what'd you call it, condensed and
Yeah,
I know you
compressed,
compressed or
decompression or
non-compressed.
decompressed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly right. So I would completely agree. This is a very decompressed story, and because of that, there's going to be big lulls, right? But I find it's worth it. I would worry that if it was compressed too much, we'd lose
Oh
too much.
yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't mean to say either compressed or decompressed is good or bad. Though in comics, I will straight up say decompressed is bad. But like that's in comics because I just want the artist to be able to draw things and be able to look at the things that the artist drew.
Right.
But like
So you do get to speed up a lot with imagery. I was thinking about that with anime as well. It's like, man, they get to do so much so
well,
fast.
yeah.
With manga,
Well,
Yeah.
in comics, the problem with decompression though is that you're often just asking the artist to sit there and draw a conversation that goes on
Mm,
forever, which
right.
forget about like my enjoyment looking at it. I just feel sorry for the poor
For the
bastard who
artist.
has to draw these just heads the whole time when they should be drawing, giant
Oh,
fights and guns and explosions and everything that's fun to draw. Uh,
right, right. I agree
but
with that.
like yeah, so I guess I don't have a problem with the decompression here. In fact, my main point in the last one was like the part that I wanted to go longer, that I was
Right.
very invested in,
No,
went by very quickly.
no,
So
100%.
that was
100%.
where I wanted it to slow down because it was an exciting scene where
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
people were doing stuff, people were kind of making decisions and doing action. Um,
Mm-hmm.
with this,
No,
uh,
I just want to say something at that point,
yeah,
just super
yeah,
quick. because you're totally right. That's exactly what you said last week, and I thought it was a wonderful point. I think that's a lesson too out there for us writers is that even if you're maybe purposely writing in a more decompressed style, as I would say this book is overall, you could still accidentally speed through. And I'm not saying it was an accident on his part.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he purposely decided to make that fast, but you could accidentally move faster through something and maybe your viewers, watchers, listeners, readers want it, right? So it is because I know that in my writing sometimes it'll be like, oh, I'll just go to this because it's maybe easy, right? And then it's like, oh no, wait, like this is actually the part I would want to read. So I need to also write it. And it's funny because you think initially, or at least I did as a writer, that those would always line up, that everything I would want to read, I would want to write. But it's not necessarily true. So I
Right.
do wonder how many of those like choices, even subconsciously, happen to writers where they end up writing something in a way that they wouldn't have wanted it as a reader
Right.
themselves. Yeah. But anyway, please
I,
continue with this
I guess
chapter.
the more interesting philosophical, which and I don't know if this is interesting to our listeners at all, but the more interesting philosophical issue I think I have with what you're saying is that like you are kind of going, and yeah, obviously this is true. Like there is a style where you know it's going to work because it creates interest of having the rising action, building the tension
Mm-hmm.
over the course of the novel, reaching a climactic
Mm-hmm.
action, and then a denouement. And this is kind of the very classic structure of a
Right.
novel, of a 3-act movie, of a bazillion different things, right?
Sure.
And there are novels, of course, that throw this completely to the wind. So, an On the Road or something, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
or some surrealist novels, and Naked Lunch or something is not
Mm-hmm.
just going to have anything to do with that, and they're still considered great. I don't know if I consider them great, but
Sure.
people consider
Sure.
them great. Uh,
Right.
so like obviously like you can throw that out. You have to be replacing it with something
Mm-hmm.
equally as compelling. And I get that this like world building or slice of life for you is equally compelling.
Right.
As I was reading it, I was like, this is the first time where I really felt like, okay, this should just be episodic. But what for
Mm-hmm.
me it's missing in episodic is kind of what we get at this paragraph break, which is like the cliffhanger.
Mm-hmm.
And like a book that is more episodic, that's not going like, oh, this is all just going to build, build, and build. This is more like a television show where like each new episode just kind of picks up where the last one left off, will tend to have these stingers more on the end of chapters where you're
Right.
going like, okay, this is what's pulling me forward, even though like it's not this one big narrative arc that's pulling me forward. It's like
These little moments.
yeah,
Yeah.
these little moments where like, oh, a girl's voice, fall off the wall, blackout.
Right.
Oh, who was this girl? What's gonna happen? Is he okay? Blah blah blah
Right.
blah. And I was struck by like I kind of felt like there's barely any of these that I really like straight recall. I mean, maybe going towards the town when we're escaping from the
Yeah.
tropics.
Well, also like the Welcome to Barrelon or something like that. Well, I mean, obviously that's
Mm.
a, again, world building geek catnip, right? Of
Right,
like,
right.
yes, tell me about Barrelon. But yeah, this is a much more traditional one of like, who's the person, right? So for sure.
But yeah, so yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, I'm interested to keep going through the end of this book, but it's a weird place to be where like you're
Right.
so far, so many pages into this thing, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I don't know where this is going. I
Right.
don't know what the point is or what the climax
Right.
could possibly be.
Right.
It's very unmooring, Jeff. I don't know, as someone who's read this book like their whole life and loved it, you can quite appreciate how I'm like, what the F is happening here and why. I mean, nothing like weird is happening, but it's just like
Right.
I don't know. There is no indication of like
Right.
what I'm supposed to be kind of looking forward
Mm-hmm.
to right
Yeah.
now, or what I'm supposed to be like excited about or what I'm building up to right now.
See, what you're experiencing right now is the brilliance of Robert Jordan
Mm.
making you feel exactly like Rand does in the narrative.
All right.
Unsure and unmoored of what is going to be happening for the rest of his life with everything that's going on.
Again, imitative fallacy. I don't know if you're like supposed to be in the reading experience feeling as confused as Rand is, but
Hey, I'm
maybe.
just saying it's something we can be replacing the rising action with, right?
All right.
I would argue that this story does have rising action. It is just at an absolute snail's pace
Hmm.
of rising action of like there is still the threat out there somewhere, and now there's kind of like also a more immediate threat. Because I mean, we do have like the beggar, we've got dark friends, we've got like Elida now is maybe going to be a problem. We've got white cloaks, so they find out. So there's a lot of groups that could cause a problem. But yeah, it's not like a fingers pointing like he's going to ransom Hamid Logain and like learn something from him, with Logain laughing in the last chapter at his end. So like there's a lot of potential ones, but yeah, the way the book has been written thus far, it feels like any of them could happen,
Right.
right?
All
Or
right.
something else we completely didn't even expect, like meeting an Ogier or falling into the Queen's garden or exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that is what some people read for of like, I don't know what's going to happen next. And because I'm interested in the world of the characters, I'm going to turn the page, right? As opposed to, I don't have something specific to look forward to. And maybe I don't care about the world building of the characters, so that I don't care about the book, obviously.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about these characters. I
Yeah.
like these characters. The Queen's kids.
Yeah.
I mean, this is. I mean, obviously, this is like another potential love interest. It gets hit like a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times in this chapter.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I guess I don't have much more to talk about with this except. Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a big thing I want to talk about with this.
I knew there would be something. I'm
Okay,
just
and
waiting.
this is the first time
I'm
too
just waiting.
where I felt like this whole pattern thing, when this Aes Sedai lady starts going
Yep.
off about the pattern, I was like,
Mm-hmm.
this sounds like a scam. She sounds like a scam artist. She
Yep.
sounds like she should have like late night commercials that come
Mm-hmm.
on at midnight where you're supposed to call into this 800 number and talk to the fortune teller and she's going to tell you what to do. Because like even they're like, look, if you can say something specific, if you can give us some actual information here, we will have them straight up killed. And she can't do it. She just speaks completely vague nonsense. And then like the main dude's like, yeah, nah, we're not paying attention to you. And I was like, this is amazing. And then I'm like, is this the whole deal? Is this whole pattern thing just this like scam that they have running on the rich people and the rulers of this world where there is no yeah, there's a pattern. Let me check in with the pattern. Ooh, here's what I'm seeing in the pattern. And it's all just nonsense.
Well, what I think you're seeing right here is Aes Sedai talk, right? And like why people don't trust Aes Sedai.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, I think you got it pegged as like the late night show. If you were like, never believe what they say. You think it means one thing, it means something else.
Well, it wasn't
Don't try
even that there was anything to
it.
believe of what she said. She just said like
I know,
nothing.
I know, right? That's what's great.
This is pretty funny. Well, now it's making me think like anybody who's bringing up the pattern. I'm like, oh, you're just pulling this out of your ass. This is
No, I
there's
I
nothing
do
here.
hear that. So yeah, it is tricky because it's not like we have. I mean, I feel like a decent number of people say pattern, but I would say more people talk about the lights than talk about the pattern. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? Like we
Oh
meet someone
yeah,
at the
just
end and they're
like
like, I don't like.
Moraine talks about the pattern. Well, I mean, some other
Right, right,
people talk about the pattern. I think.
exactly, that's what I'm saying. But it doesn't seem quite as many, so I can see that that could create an association for you of like, if there's not that many people talking about the pattern, is it just like few? Is it this ice scam thing, right?
Yeah.
So no, I hear what you would say that because it's not as ubiquitous as usage of light, for instance.
Yeah. This one right here. I'm
Yeah,
just
look
like
at
this
this
is
out.
just infomercial fortune teller nonsense,
Right.
right?
And I think saying no clear.
All right. Well,
Uh,
now until I get some more information otherwise, my guess is the pattern is just a massive scam that Ice and I have been perpetrating on everyone for
I mean,
like.
she is saying things are going to go bad for
Well,
Antoine.
yeah, but
So,
I mean that's exactly it. That's exactly what like fake
true.
fortune tellers will do. They will say, "Oh, something I see something vague is going to happen. On a long enough timeline, something bad is going to happen." So then when it does, you're like, "Oh, that fortune teller. They were totally true. They knew it. They told me something bad is going to happen. Something bad
Exactly.
is always going to happen at some point."
Pain and division, Steve. Pain and division.
All right.
No, no, for sure. But I mean, I think as you said that I think you liked was the way the character is like, okay, you're not helping me with this
Right,
decision.
yeah, that dude.
But,
Um, which is, but I mean it. So I like that. What I what I'm feeling weird about is that like, which I've felt weird about this pattern thing for the whole time. I'm on record multiple times being angry
sure.
about this pattern thing, and I really have also no idea how seriously I'm supposed to be taking this pattern thing.
Right.
It still feels like the book massively wants me to buy in to this pattern thing, that this is real and that this is the
Mhm.
foundation of this universe, but it
Mhm.
undercuts it at every time. And maybe that's genius to undercut this thing that I'm
Mhm.
supposed to buy in on, but it makes me question Moraine, it makes me question
Right.
everything that I'm reading.
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell which is the better reading experience for that because obviously that's going to be a long one, right? Like, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
since it's foundational to the system, I mean, there's no signs pointing towards that being like revealed by the end of this book, probably.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe, but I would say I feel like either could be a completely legitimate reading experience. I mean, I get that it makes you question everything, but I don't know if that in itself is bad per se. I feel
Yeah.
like there's other elements of the story that are more making it not a Steve story than that. But I mean, feel free to say if I'm wrong. If that is really a major holdup for it, that would be interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, I want to be like I guess like maybe I've been fighting against this the whole time. Like I want maybe I want to have like a character that I associate with besides Rand because I find him such a wet noodle, and like
Right.
Moraine. Yeah, maybe this is weird. Maybe this is what the television producers felt as well, that Moraine's going to be that character. So then I
Right. I
want
think
to
that,
buy in on her as like this hero character that I'm
mm,
on the side of, and she's very
okay.
much the pattern person.
Right.
So maybe that's where my like conflict is. I was like, okay, well, I want to buy in on what Marine's saying, and that Marine's with it. And Marine is the voice of reason all the time, and she's like, I like her, but then like this just made me doubt the pattern thing like so much more. It just
Right. Right.
written in such a way that I hadn't exactly associated the pattern with a scam until this
Right.
chapter, and now I'm like, it's a scam. It's a story
Well,
that they're
it
telling
would,
to get what they want.
it could also be like, dependent on the person. Like,
Right.
it could be scamming, right? Versus, I do hear that though. That like you want a character to buy in with for sure. And I would say I think the showrunners, made a smart choice of picking Moraine because I do think she's a very interesting character, very compelling character. And it'll be interesting to see how much she talks about the pattern, and if she talks about it in a way that people just like believe, or if they thread the story with a lot of the pattern or not, right?
Yeah.
For this reason. Um, but I mean, I think, one, you've got the Marine is normally so far right about stuff, so I think we can build a little character trust in that regard that if, she's normally right and she believes in something, it could be true.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
there's definitely author intention behind me feeling like it's a scam because, like, the thing I just said,
yeah,
like, things are always going to get worse, so it's not a real fortune
oh, for sure.
telling, is straight up
Oh,
said by
completely.
the character. But like, it's wild. I guess what I don't know, like, how much you can I like undercut the things that you've already set up as
Mm-hmm.
like real and legit and that I need to buy into. Certainly this person might not really have a connection to the actual
Mhm.
pattern. And I also get like that I'm being telegraphed here that this Aes Sedai I'm supposed to be scared of, because that part I thought was weird too, that Rand is like so worried about getting away from her, and I'm like, what is she gonna do to you exactly? Like, what would have
Mhm.
happened if Margase had not kept the Aes Sedai with her? You think this Aes Sedai is just gonna go rogue and like disobey the queen and kill you or something? Like, what did he think here? I was like, I don't think that would happen. The queen just made a commandment, and that would seem crazy
Right.
if like an Aes Sedai then like stabbed you in the back or something because she wasn't stuck talking to the queen.
I mean, I think it's just there could be a couple of reasons. One is the sort of cultural fear of Aes Sedai not wanting to get mixed up in their plots overall.
Mm-hmm.
Two, that this one seems scarier than Moraine. So he already feels weird around Moraine, and so it'd be even worse around this one. And then with like the stuff Master Guild told them and the bad blood. I mean, obviously you don't get Rand thinking about that here. Like there's no worry of like they're going to connect me to Tom or something, right?
Right.
But he does mention it doesn't even matter if she was red or not,
Mm-hmm.
because they know that like Redajah hunt men who can channel, that sort of thing.
Right.
So there could be some fear there. But again, yeah, you don't. You're right. I mean, he could have thought of those concerns, right? But I wonder if those weren't there to keep the pacing of the chapter up, or just like a general concern because he's a farm boy that's suddenly in front of the queen and just freaked
But
out.
he's like, what would have happened though? Like, I don't know. What does he think would have? How? What is he? What is he worried about here? That she would have
I
questioned
mean,
him more and
yeah, she
figured
would have
out his
questioned it.
connections to other things.
Yeah, I think so.
All right.
But I mean, you're right, that's a moment where there could have been more specificity, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I wonder. Yeah, that one feels tricky to me because like I do see like just writing what the worry is, right, or even maybe a couple worries.
Mm-hmm.
But then I wonder like how is it for the reader to get to sort of pass over that and maybe think a thing or two on their own, or then just continue with the narrative. Like I wonder what the better choice is, just to show fear or concern, you
Yeah, I
know?
mean, like if you just leave that open, it leaves me to think like, Ram, what are you, an idiot? She can't hurt you. The queen just let you go and made a commandment to let you go. You're in like
Right.
the palace or whatever. It just made me feel like he was like just having a I don't
I think,
like he's a moron. That's what it made me feel
well,
like, you know. But
well,
if he's just worried, like, oh, she would even like would I say it's worry? Oh, she'll follow me and find out more about me.
it's the whisper thing, I think. I think that's what he's freaked out about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that she whispers the second foretelling that only he can hear, about um, this to paint a vision, come to the world whole, and this man stands at the heart of it. And I speak clearly. So, like, I think we're getting, again, a hint there about him being the dragon reborn, right? Because a dragon's supposed to bring strife to the world, and he stands at the heart of it, right? To me, actually, when I was reading this, I was like, oh, that's kind of feels heavy-handed to say, like, sort that foretelling is much clearer to a degree. But
Right.
so I feel like, and that's why he responds, I'm a shepherd, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the saying, I'm not this thing, right? So I think that's what he's worried about from her, is that she thinks he could be that, and obviously he doesn't want to be associated with that.
Yeah. All right. I mean
Yeah.
he could just say that or something. Like as far as what's gonna happen, nothing's gonna happen if she like was not sitting there. You,
Well, I mean, the idea is that if he was found out to be the dragon, then he could be put in like a cage until like Tarmageddon and all that. So like there is a concern to be found out as a man who can channel, if he is a man who can channel,
okay. So
because it's
what would
the
she
idea.
have found out if she had not been
Right,
kept with her?
exactly. Like
So why did he
that's what
say
he's worried
that?
about.
It's the same sentence, but like you understand what Rand's actually thinking or feeling.
Yeah. So I mean,
I
this
want to
isn't our first.
understand what the characters are thinking and feeling. I'm sorry, but I want to know what the main freaking character is thinking and feeling.
Right, right. I mean, you gotta get those context clues, right?
All right,
Uh,
yeah. Even what you're saying though is just like your
the
guess.
book's
It's not like,
the book's too short. He doesn't have time to like tell you.
oh
Oh,
yeah. He's gotta decompress this shit, right?
uh, I think that's the other thing, right? Is that you're sort of flabbergasted by what he chooses to spend time on, right?
Hmm.
Like you're gonna learn the history of like Ogier singing the trees, but like how exactly is Rand feeling in a moment of fear? Yeah, you gotta like work that out for yourself, bro.
All
Uh,
right.
Baron being captured from being beheaded, we got this. We in, we out, right?
well,
Please don't think I'm saying
well, I'm
that's
gonna wrap
all.
this up, but I want to say one more thing about this is that like the other
Do it, do
thing
it.
that I feel like is weird about this chapter is that we just reset after it. Like
Yeah,
I thought for sure because they're like, oh, we're gonna throw you in jail, and these kids are going to Tarvalon anyway, and I'm like,
mhm,
okay, this all connects. This
right,
now he's gonna be stuck in this palace with these kids
right,
and gonna go to Tarvalon in that way, and that would be
right,
like a consequence of what happened and like a
right.
change of the status quo. No, they just let him go and he just goes home. And now, like, now, of course, we're going to run into these people again. Of course, these are going to be important characters, but now we got to put them together again. And it also made me think, like, earlier, they're like, oh, good thing I told you this thing about Tom so you don't go to the queen and accidentally get, messed up. And I was like, but he goes to the queen anyway. What he ends up with that, not going to the queen for that, he just literally just falls on the queen, right?
Yep.
Like, why did we have to go through those plot mechanisms of Tom's story time to keep him away from the queen when we just immediately then put him together with the queen anyway?
Well, I think that, I mean, I hear you in terms of like setups and
Uh
payoffs,
huh.
right? But I also feel like that's part of the brilliance of the narrative, which stops us from knowing like what's going to happen next. Like even in that moment, I was like, oh yeah, it seems like the queen's going to put him in like jail,
Yeah.
right? Like all sense of that. And then but she's like, no. But I felt like her decision was legit because of the political problems that are happening outside of her city and her not wanting to like feed into those fires, even if no one around is going to like know, right? Just that's her honor or whatever as a ruler. And so the choice she made didn't feel like unjustified from her perspective.
I didn't so
But
much dislike her choice as I
yeah,
dislike there doesn't feel like there was any consequence to this whole thing that I just read. Like nothing changed
mhm,
as a result of it. Nothing has advanced as a result of it.
mhm.
Like that's what I feel like I'm like what why did I read this? Nothing has been brought forward by this.
Well, I think that that's the beauty of epic fantasy is you get to do things on a much larger scale. That these various things, yeah, they don't have immediate payoffs. They're more for later. And that's why I talk about the slice of life aspect because that, slice of narratives or even like anime and stuff are very much like that. Like you're just sort of a day in the life, things happen, they're connected, but it's not to some big rising point or an explosion because of the past, at least not initially. But eventually enough of those day in the lives then do lead
Hmm.
to a big thing. So it is a build. It's just a very, like I said, a slow build where yeah, initially it feels like, well, nothing in the immediate moment changed. But now there are new people he knows. He's aware of being like an ideal. Like it's like little things in life.
But you're so pro change as being an important part of a narrative, right?
Yeah, yeah. Like you like character growth, you mean?
Yeah.
Sure.
But I mean, there's just none here.
I mean, not yet.
See, this is where, yeah, I think I'm gonna have to like kind of differ
Yeah.
because I feel like every part of your story should be doing something like that. Like, there should be even if it's kind of like a chill, slice of life point, I want some sort of new insight or some sort of, forward progression in something so that I can feel like we're going somewhere. And,
So
yeah.
go finish.
Well, and maybe you're telling me you just kind of have to have the faith as a reader that that is going to happen. You know
Mhm.
what things are going to happen. I don't. But
Right.
like I feel like if you're not doing that constantly, that's really tough to get somebody to come along with you on that journey.
Yeah, I mean, so I hear what you're saying. Like from a mechanical perspective, or like, if we're breaking down a story. I agree. Yeah, for a regular story, especially like a movie or whatever, or maybe a regular size book. Yeah. And obviously that works. I mean, you can look at something like Dan Brown stuff that is like adrenaline fiction, where it's like every moment something crazy is happening. Oh my goodness, I can't stop turning these tiny chapters, and then you finish the book, right?
But that's
And there's
like that's
that.
mischaracterizing my argument. It
Well,
doesn't
I'm
need to
not.
be that.
Oh no, exactly. I'm just talking about different ends of the spectrum. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, no, I'm not saying that's what you're arguing for. I'm just saying that like, so on one hand, there is the thought of the standard of yeah, rising action leading to a climax, a payoff that we like get. Yeah, I spent time, I get to see this thing. And some novels lean way hard on like doing it constantly, right? Was what I was trying to show, like an extreme version of it, right? And this I would just say is on the other end of the spectrum, which is like if we were in Rand's perspective, like this is a huge day. Like we're like, oh, nothing happened, but like he just like met a queen and like met like the kids of a queen and like met this Aes Sedai who's supposed to be like way above him, and now he's like worried about them knowing who he is or finding them, and now yeah, these other people are going to be on the road. Well, how is that going to affect things? So like lots of stuff just happened for him, but they didn't seem to progress the story in a way like I think we're used to with a lot of what we consume. But it is very much still progressing his life and like sort of the world of the story. And so I think that that's what can be engaging again if you're interested in the characters, the world, what this world seems to be about, the gradual direction the story is going, that type of thing.
All right. All right.
Because
Well,
like he's gone through things, like he's
he's
experiencing stuff has happened for him.
yeah,
It's just like stuff hasn't like happened in terms of the Dark One catching him or something.
yeah, yeah.
I get you that he's still back on the street, still waiting for his friends, right? Like at the end of the day, like he could know these people or not, and that doesn't seem to affect his ability to meet up with his friends, right? So like I do hear you in that regard.
Yeah,
It's not
I
like
I
an
think
obvious
I
thing.
think consequences don't need to be earth-shattering, insane, fireworks all the time. But I do
Mhm.
want there to be consequences. I do want something to lead to something. And like I'm sure again this is pointing to me that this is going to pay off. These people are going to be important. We wouldn't have spent all this time with them if they're not important. But like man, it's hard for me to see why they're important. They have nothing to do with the Dark One. I don't know why I'm
Mhm.
supposed to like care about their lives. I just like I just want them to be important to know why that's
All right,
important, so I can
all
be
right,
into
all right,
it, so I can be really excited about it.
right.
And I can't. I'm having deep trouble being really excited about this when I don't know why it's
Um,
important.
no, I hear you. I hear you that it could very much feel like a side quest or something,
Yeah, yeah.
For the
This felt like
main-
a super side quest. Like
yeah,
we just met them, we hung out with them a little bit, we left.
right.
I'm sure they'll come up again, but how does it connect? What's it doing?
Well, well, I think again, that's, if you liked those characters, then you're just excited to hopefully see them again.
Yeah, I don't
I mean,
think
it's
I
one you
liked them
can't.
that much. I mean, they were like all right, but like I feel like I would like them more if I knew why it was important. I
Hmm.
feel like it's an impediment to my liking these people.
You and how it all fits.
I mean, I just need like just a hint of why it's important.
I know, but I mean, Rand going through that, I mean, he doesn't know. Like, it's just people he's meeting. But here's
I
the
know,
thing.
but
It
I
will
mean that's
definitely
realistic for
involve
Rand,
Andy
but I'm
Oliver.
not living Rand's life. I'm a poor person
Well,
trying to
but
make it through this novel.
no, I know what I'm saying, but that's what some people read for. They want to like live this person's life. I'm not saying that's why everyone would like this story, but I'm saying that's one reason, right? But I get what you're saying. Like the author has a hand in things, right? Like the author chooses which scene to tell. It's like if the author wanted, it could have just been a perspective of Rand sleeping all night and him twitching, and we could have done 10 pages on that, right? But they didn't do that because why? So it seems like anything the author shows us, there should be some sort of root,
Yeah.
right? So I get that like base assumption. And I think Robert Jordan does break with that base assumption by just showing us a lot of things. Like, time we spend with, the Ogier in the library, right? Like when Matt is even like, go with your Chalik friend. I don't know about you, but I was like, oh yeah, I guess he'll go with Lowell to this, right? But then Lowell's not there, not even mentioned, right? So it's like, well, then why did I spend that time with Lowell, right? And then we meet these people. It's like, why did I spend the time with him? We're spending a fair bit of time with Master Gil. Why are we spending time with him? And I feel like that's, again, in some ways, sort of that's one way to use the length is to have him just do a bunch of stuff. And then some of the things will come back and some won't, sort of like the way life is, and the reader can't predict what it's going to be.
Here's my story. He's just gonna do a bunch of stuff, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, bro.
All right. All right.
While the evil of the world chases him down.
Well, we'll see which rando people he meets next and what random stuff he decides to do next
We
chapter.
got old friends, so
And I
old
will
friends.
see you all then. And I would, I would apologize, people. I'm being completely honest and open about my feelings about this book. I don't mean to be ragging on anything that people love. I know people love this thing. I want to love it too. I really do. I really do. And so I'm just trying to find my way in. And again, maybe it will. Maybe it will grab me. Maybe it will strike me. By the
I
time
think
we're
you
at
like
the
the
end.
TV. I think, for my quick final thought, I think if the TV show is done well, you'd like it. Because the TV show is going to do exactly what you want. It's going to cut out all this crap. Like, none of this is going to happen. I mean, like, what if it does is going to happen, like, in 2 minutes, you know? So it is going to completely take a cleaver to so many of these just, like, little life scenes. And, yeah, it's going to string together, like, all these moments of action that are happening.
Yeah.
And we'll see. We'll see if they can do that well. Because yeah, I mean, this story could have been told in a much more condensed fashion, and I think that's what they're gonna have to go for, just money-wise, right? So we shall see.
All right, everybody. We will be back, and that's going to be a lot of fun too. I am excited about like watching the shows and then talking to you and comparing. I mean, that
For
alone
sure.
has got me super hype. So
No, totally. I'm super excited to do this. I mean, I'd already be excited, but I'm even more because of it. I'm sad it's only 8 episodes. Like, I understand production budgets and everything, but it's like, oh, only 8 episodes. But if they're tight episodes, and what I meant by tight was just like structurally tight, like not veering off, not decompressed a lot,
right.
compressed in the right places, basically. But anyway, yeah, no, I'm excited for that too, and I'm excited to finish the read. I'm not wanting to write off your experience with the rest of this book. I am also very, very interested to see. I can't wait to have the conversation for the last chapter. Like, I am probably even more pumped for that, just to be like, we're at the last chapter. We're finally talking about the whole book that you just read. What's going to happen? So I'm very excited about that as well. So I'm eager to continue this.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We will see you next week.